What has been the most important parts of a lease to consider when getting into negotiations?
I need you to understand that tenant improvement or TIA, tenant improvement allowance, well, that's what we call first generation space. So whenever a space is brand new, no one's ever lived in it, the first tenant is going to get a ton of TI, a very sexy, appealing number to try to get you to sign a lease. Now, that TI is only going to cover capital costs, meaning there is probably no HVAC in there. And if it is, it isn't hooked up. There's probably not even plumbing. It might even be just gravel. They haven't even laid down the pad of cement because they don't know where the plumbing is going to go. And the first tenant gets to set that up. So your lease rates are the highest with first generation space, but you will get TI. The problem thing with the TI, they're going to want to collateralize it. And if you're a startup or you're a young business who has less than 3 years on the books, or you don't have what we call DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, you might not be the tenant that they're wanting to give all this money to because, no offense, statistically, you have a higher likelihood of defaulting on the lease and going out of business than not based on the numbers. It's also educating clients like, hey, listen, that first generation space, we'll make a run at it if you want. Let me show you a few second generation spaces. You won't get as much TI, but we have a better chance of this, and this. So it's just presenting options. And at the end of the day, they're the business owner. We will advise and we'll give them recommendations, but looking at things like that. And so and then negotiating things. So I never, ever will let a client sign a lease in which during the construction, whether they're paying for it or the landlord is, they're also paying rent. Also, if there's a dual overlap, meaning their lease is going to lapse a couple months over from when their rent at the new place begins, I'm also going to fight to get that part taken care of. And then generally 3 to 6 months of free rent there afterwards. I'm trying to get these guys the best runway. And the beautiful thing about the Jim Real Estate Company that landlords love, and it's one of the reasons some of these clients, which no offense, they don't have the background to justify the location they got. I'm able to come in and say, hey, I've been doing business consulting since 2015. And we stay on for 6 months, Michael, after they sign a lease for consulting, to make sure they have a good pre-sell and help them set up the business. And the landlords love that because I don't know if you guys realize this. After 2020, we are not an attractive asset from a landlord's perspective. So many landlords were left holding the bag after COVID when gyms and massage parlors and in-person brick and mortar services went out of business due to that whole shit show. So you really have to come correct. So we do 36-month financial projections and we do a business plan and we present all of that to the landlord. So on day one, they're like, oh shit, this guy's really got his stuff together. Look, he literally showed up with this on day one. And I don't expect the gym owner to prepare all that. We'll do it for them because I want the highest likelihood that they land the space that they want. And unfortunately, a lot of landlords are just stereotyping gyms as, I don't want it. It's just too much of a headache. So I try to make us come correct and look as proper as possible when we do present an LOI that we're interested in the space.